And then that does it for quarterbacks. Let's get to running backs real quick. And I think this is where it gets the most difficult, right? If you had an injury to Isaiah Pacheco, if you had an injury to a few players this week, man, it's Rachaad White went out. Joe Mixon's dealing with an ankle. Like, it's rough in fantasy land right now. And when it comes to the running backs here, you know, these are players that it's tough to gauge on. There's no, like, I think if you got Mason, you got Dobbins. I think you kind of got lucky because CMC ended up going on IR, and you kind of got lucky with Dobbins because he proved that he was the lead back in the system, right? But now for this week, the pickups are just a little bit more murky. And with Isaiah Pacheco, especially his injury, opens up the door on this KC offense for a running back. And we're talking about 3 different options here. 3. And one of them isn't even on the team yet. So Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, and Kareem Hunt are the 3 options here. Carson Steele is the one I would want. I think he has an immediate path to playing time. Already had been talked up as taking a red zone role for this team, while Samaje Perine was taking the passing game work. And I think with Pacheco on the shelf for 2 months, Steele's the one I would want. And when it comes to budget, like, I'd spend about $7 to $10 on him. I'm not a big spender, right? But there's a possibility in a world where he ends up as a weekly RB3. And I think for teams that need him, I would be okay with spending a little bit extra if you're feeling down at running back, or maybe you had a major injury to somebody that's out for a few weeks. So Carson Steele is the name I would want. Samaje Perine would be the name I'd be okay with getting if I didn't get Steele. So I put a bid in for both, maybe a couple dollars, if that, for Samaje Perine. I think that Carson Steele is going to be the player I would want because of the touchdown upside and probably just more carries overall. And then as far as Kareem Hunt, he's the dart throw in this. He's kind of a dark horse. Some of your league mates might want to spend a little bit more to make sure that they get him, but this team just doesn't have a guy that they can give 15 touches to automatically. They could see it with Steele. They could see it with Perine, but I think they know they could get that out of Kareem Hunt, even if he's not as good as some of the other backs. So for me, Kareem Hunt would be like a dart throw, maybe $1 or $2, just because of the name value. And if he hits and gets a starting role, he's also a trade asset, right? So I think for the most part, Steele will be a weekly RB3 if he can get the start. Perine will be like up and down flex. And then Kareem Hunt's the wild card. He would kind of be on the same radar as a Steele. We saw Kareem Hunt play well last year for the Browns in a limited role. I think he could bring some veteran experience and then also some upside weekly for our fantasy teams. And then as far as the other back, CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's not expected back till week 5. He would be, if they don't sign Kareem Hunt, he's the most veteran guy in here. So if you have an IR stash, he might be a forgotten name. Might be a decent IR stash in case he's back week 5 and gets another opportunity. Don't love the name, but CEH could be a decent stash, I think, on IR. And most people aren't willing to spend any fab on him or a high waiver budget. So you might be able to get him after waivers clear or for a 0 bid in your fab leagues. Braelon Allen also played really well. That was one of my favorite backup running back stashes. I talked about him and like Blake Corum. Those were like my 2 stashes at running back. And he's definitely earned more work, scored 2 touchdowns last week. I still think he's more of a stash right now than he is a weekly play. But if he continues to get work or he earns more touches, he's going to be a flex player. And I mean, he's a good running back. It's not like he's a bad running back. He's just in a bad situation behind Breece. So unless Breece gets dinged up, Braelon Allen's probably flex at best in deeper leagues and probably more of like a bye week guy. Just he's a good player to have in case things happen with some of your other starters. I don't think he has a ton of upside unless Breece gets hurt. That's the only thing. And then probably the top pickup for the week, as far as just this week, I think Carson Steele is probably the one player I would spend the most money on. But like as far as top running back pickup for this week, Rachaad White dealing with an injury this week. So probably it looks like he might miss this week. And Bucky Irving is going to step into a much bigger workload. So he's already played pretty well in the time that he's been in these games. So it's just a matter of him, how many reps does he get? And I'm sure Sean Tucker will get involved in some capacity. But this will be Bucky Irving's time to shine. And this is a player a lot of people liked this offseason. So a good crack at getting starting workload here for Bucky Irving. And then just to note, I'm not saying I'm kind of unsure about this injury for Joe Mixon. We haven't got a full update on it, But if Joe Mixon, who's dealing with a potential high ankle sprain or a medial sprain, if it's either one of them, if it's a medial injury or if it's a high ankle sprain, there could be a chance that Joe Mixon misses extended time. The thought, I think from what I've heard, what I've read, is that it's something that they might have avoided a longer absence with him. But just in case, Cam Akers did come into the game, look decent in his carries there on Sunday night. Dameon Pierce is dealing with the injury, could be back, but it's got to be one of those two, Pierce or Cam Akers. I kind of lean Cam Akers for the interim because I think Pierce is still banged up. He didn't. I'm pretty sure he was inactive for the game on Sunday, and I don't know what his availability looks like moving into this week. But Cam Akers would be the name I'd be looking at. I'm not. If I don't mention a price tag, it's probably a zero bid or dollar bid on the player. A zero bid or dollar bid. And then I think that's it, right? I think that's it for running backs that I had. Bucky Irving was the other one. I would spend maybe like a $5 to $6, $7 range, somewhere in there, just depending on your how necessary it is for you. All right, and then I'm gonna get into some questions, and then I will get back to wide receivers.